Alright, guys, I want to introduce you to the big bore battle system. Okay, so typically, your battle loadout, you're going to have, you know, some sort of long range capability. Then you're going to have your medium and intermediate range. You're going to have like your battle rifle or your battle carbine. And then you're going to have some sort of combat pistol, right? And typically, these things are going to be chambered in like 9 millimeter, or possibly 45 auto, but probably not. Typically 9 millimeter for your combat pistol, and then your battle carbine. Depending on what you're doing, you may be in the 308 flavor, or you may be into 5.56, and then your long range capability probably starts at 308 and goes up to whatever 300 Win Mag, 338 Lapua, one of them cartridges, something like that. But probably starts at 308. So when you think about it, from a practicality standpoint, you've got three different firearms, and they're chambered in three different rounds. So you've got to like keep up with that. You've got to maintain three different firearms that use three different rounds, right? And so you've got to figure out how to acquire your 9 millimeter, your 5.56 ammo, and your 308 or whatever ammo you're using for your long range gun. So what I want to introduce you guys to is one of my setups, and this is the big bore battle system. Okay, and essentially all of these you see right here will fire the exact same cartridge. So already streamlined, it cuts you down to one cartridge, and so we'll talk about it. We'll start with your handgun. Some may refer to this as a hand cannon, but basically this one is actually chambered in 460 Smith and Wesson Magnum. But I typically, because this rifle and this rifle are both chambered in 454 Casull, I mean that's what I'm going to be shooting out of this. Now I do have a box of 460, okay, just because I had to try it out. But 99% of the time, I'm going to be shooting 454 out of it, just for practicality purposes and plus expense purposes. I mean, it's like $50 a box there. So you get to thinking about, well, when it comes to your handgun, if you got a typical combat pistol, you're gonna have probably at least 15 in one capacity, maybe 20 one round capacity, somewhere in there. It's gonna be a full size semi-automatic, and you're like, well, I get 15 or 20 rounds or whatever. So how does that compare to a 5 round revolver? Okay, well, let's look at some stuff. These rounds are 240 grain XTP mag, and your muzzle velocity is 1900 feet per second. So what does that translate to output energy? That's right around 1850, 1900. It's close to 2,000 foot pounds of energy, give or take. So each one of these rounds, if you think about it and do the math, a 9 millimeter is going to put out, about 400 foot pounds of energy. So this is essentially 5 times that much energy per round. So, and it holds 5 rounds. So it's essentially shooting like you've got 20 rounds of 9 millimeter. I mean, it's the same thing. You've got 5 rounds, but it's got the same energy as 20 rounds of 9 millimeter. So same thing. I mean, we're comparing apples to apples here. Instead of putting essentially like for this, if you put one round on target, it's the same as putting 5 rounds of 9 millimeter on target. If you get what I'm trying to say. Okay. Now, so there you go. Well, you may be wondering about the recoil on that. And, well, that's the thing is if you put one round on target with that much energy all in one round, is it really necessary to try to make a follow up shot? Something to think about. And then there may be a scenario too where you're like, okay, well, even though it's a hollow point, it is carrying so much load behind it, so much energy that it is going to pass through just about anything you shoot at. It's going to pass through. Like if you were to shoot a bear with it or something, it's going to shoot through the bear, like through and through. That's just part of the nature of that type of having that type of firepower. So what if you're in like a home defense situation? You don't want to have to worry about you say you got a bad guy in this room and he's trying to attack me or whatever, attack my family, and I go to shoot him with this handgun. I don't want to have to worry about that round going through him and through the wall and into the bathroom or into the kids' room or my bedroom, because I'm fairly certain this round would shoot end to end through my house. So we have the solution for that. Liberty Civil Defense ammunition. These are 78 grain monolithic fragmenting hollow points. And they're 1,800 feet per second and 560 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. These, all the testing I've seen, they're designed to stay inside the body. They're not designed to go through it. So that solves your over-penetration issue of shooting .454 Casull. Alright, so moving on to our battle carbine here. This is a Rossi Puma Model 92 and chambered in .454 Casull. Now, you get quite a bit of an advantage when you go to a 20-inch barrel with this round. See, it says 1,900 feet per second on the box. If you shoot it out of a longer barrel like this, you actually get about 2,250 out of it. All right, so that really ramps up the amount of output. Now you're getting over, close to about 2,500 foot-pounds, 2,600 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Okay, so you added about 500-600 foot-pounds of muzzle energy to it. You added another almost 300, actually more than about 350 feet per second to it. And this one I actually have equipped with a tang sight for flipping up for shooting long range with, and I've actually shot this out to 300 yards so far, and it surprised me. I've not done a whole lot of open sight shooting, iron sight shooting at that range, and I managed to shoot at 300 yards. If you're worried about accuracy, I shot a 5-inch group at 300 yards with this rifle. Okay, and then same thing, if you're worried about capacity limitations, this actually holds 9 plus 1 round, so 10 rounds of that with over 2,500 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. So 10 rounds of it, and say that's double per round, twice as much energy as your 5.56. So essentially 20 rounds of 5.56 right here worth of energy on target. And if you're concerned about range, with this setup, you don't have to run this setup. You could run regular irons on there, like the normal dovetail, and I would say you probably run out of range about 500 yards with that. But with this on here, essentially your range is, probably up to a mile if you wanted to shoot that far with it. Okay, but at that, shooting a mile open sights, you're really limited to how good your eyesight is. It essentially, that's what you're looking at. All right. So moving on from that, we'll look into our long-range capability, our quote-unquote sniper rifle. And by the way, I have to give a couple shout-outs on this one because it's got some kind of unique things to it. First of all, to maximize the usable range, I had Murphy Precision, Cameron Murphy of Murphy Precision, make me a 70 MOA rail. They're located out in Idaho, and we had some issues with the first couple ones, actually the first one, and then I took some more measurements, sent back, and the guy's like, as good as gold as far as working with him and helping me find a solution for what I was needing. So I got the 70 MOA rail on here. My scope has 140 MOA basically of adjustment range. So if you know anything about rifle scopes, you really only get half of that out of there. If it was 0 minutes of angle on the rail, you would only really be able to use about 70 MOA out of that scope. So because I added 70 MOA to the rail, now I've got a full 140 minutes I can use, and that's going to extend my range close to 1,400 yards. Okay, and with you know, there's a caveat to that. I have to use a particular type of ammunition, and this is where the second shout out goes to. Second shout out goes to Bill of Alco Bullets in Missouri. He makes these are 300 grain smokeless muzzleloader bullets. So I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's been, you know, over the past couple of years, 2 or 3 years, these companies have been developing these smokeless muzzleloaders that pretty much, like, they use smokeless gunpowder, and they pretty much shoot like high-powered rifles. So they started developing smokeless muzzleloader bullets with really high ballistic coefficients to get there. I had the bright idea because these are they're 45 caliber, they're .452 in diameter. I had the bright idea that I would try to load them in a centerfire cartridge, and didn't know if it was going to work good or not, and it ended up working great. I've shot these out past 1,000 yards, and we're planning on going even further. So if you're worried about, you know, getting a 45 caliber straight wall cartridge out to that type of range, well, I mean, essentially, it's got about the same effective range as a 308. The bullet is a lot heavier. We're talking 300 grains, and it's going slower, about 2,050, sometimes 2,100 feet per second. You know, so we're talking about 3,000 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, basically. So it's got quite a bit of muzzle energy, probably a little more than 308. And it will shoot 1,000 yards if you want to. And with this setup and my ballistic calculations and stuff I've done, I should be able to get it to almost 1,400 yards. So if you're worried about, like, well, you're shooting basically a pistol cartridge, I mean, your handgun is going to be effective probably up to about 100 yards, depending on how good you are with a handgun. The little lever action is going to be effective probably up to 500 yards, and that again depends on how good you are shooting open sights. Could be further, could be closer. That's all going to depend on you. And then this rifle is going to be effective up to 1,000 plus yards, and they're all shooting essentially the same cartridge. They're all shooting a 454 Casull, with the exception of the handgun. Does have the capability of shooting the 460 if you just needed something to shoot a little bit flatter. But of course, with the 460, you're gonna, you know, what comes along with it is more recoil. So anyways, I just wanted to go over the whole big bore battle system with you guys and see what you think about it. Drop some comments in the section below. Thanks for watching.